Okay. Let me test it first. Okay. Testing 1, 2. Let me test it first. Okay, sounds like it's working. Good. Okay, we are ready to go live.
So what's the story behind your hair? You're letting it grow. Is there a story behind that?
The hair on my head, I haven't decided. My beard, I'm waiting until my test.
Oh.
I passed the test.
Okay.
That's the significance.
When's the next test?
June 23rd.
Oh, okay.
So once I pass that, beard comes off. If I don't pass it, I'm keeping it until I pass it.
Okay.
What I've decided. But the hair, I just, it's just annoying. I was just talking to my sister about this. It's just annoying. You style it or whatever it is, you figure it out, but then after a week or two, it's not that size, it's not that length anymore.
Yeah,
so you have to go back, and it's like, I'm not going to pay for a barber every 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just, so I was like, long, I know how to handle it. I can put it in a bun, I can put it half up, so it's just easier. So.
But are you trimming the beard at all?
I'm trimming, yeah.
Trimming.
I'm gonna trim it a little bit here and there, but grow it out.
Take it off, later.
Yes. So
good luck.
Yes, thank you. Success will be you'll see me beardless.
Yeah. So when I see that, then I'll know.
You'll know, yeah. And if you see it on June 24th, you'll know I did not pass. So hopefully June 23rd in around 2 o'clock, I go home and just shave it off.
And then do you have to go to a testing center?
Yeah, Pearson View, whatever they're called. Yeah, that's a testing center in Pasadena. There's one right down the street. So it's not too far, but it's just the test is very annoying. So.
How many hours is it?
4.5. It's 225 questions, but it's just terrible questions. They're just trying to trick you.
Oh, I see.
What's the most correct? It's all of them are correct, but this one's the most correct. You pick the second most correct, you get 0 points. It's just.
Well, there's only one correct answer
If the
Scantron.
Right, exactly. So it's just. Are you testing my reading comprehension or my psychology?
You have to learn the answers.
You're correct. You have to learn the questions.
Yeah, you have to learn the questions.
That's the thing.
But you have to also know which answer to give.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Like there's one question, I love the example I found where the question just is slightly different, same answers, same 4, slightly different question, you get 2 different answers. It's the same multiple choice. 2 of them are easy to rule out. It's a 50-50 always. And then based on the perspective, you have to pick the right one. Both are correct, 100% correct. You just have to connect it to the right question. It's just, like, this is no longer a psychology test. It's
Right. And,
So, anyways.
it make it so difficult.
I guess, yeah. It's the gatekeeping for licensure. So I just got to get through it. So hopefully this is the last time.
How many times have you done it?
This will be my 4th. Yeah. The first one was I just wanted to get a feel for the test.
Yeah.
But the second 2, I studied for months and my score didn't change. So I was like, oh, okay, this is something.
Are there preparatory courses you take?
I've been trying a new one every single time.
Oh, I see.
So the second one I tried one, didn't work. Third one I tried one, score was the same. This time I'm trying one that's a new perspective. We'll see what this one does. So, yeah, we got 3 weeks left-ish. 3 weeks, 3 days.
And then eventually maybe you'll be on the committee on how to make these tests.
Correct.
Sometimes I realize that people who've done so many times, they end up somehow using that multiple failures
Yeah.
in their career.
Yeah.
To help them.
Yeah, you're right.
When you relate to people, hey, I failed this 5 times, and you did.
Yeah. And I'm here now. It's a past. It's in my history.
Yeah,
It's possible. So yeah, it's a
but the journey is not fun.
journey's annoying. Yeah, getting there is frustrating part. But yeah, so it's fine. It's okay. It's part of the story. Keep adding to it.
So last time you weren't able to finish, that it spilled over into part 2, or you intended it to be 2?
I intended to be.
Oh.
Yeah, because it was 10 of 10 points.
Oh.
I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through. Yeah. So I intentionally split it. And then today I'll be a little more brief with each point, just so we make the time. We're not going to do it by 7. We'll do 7:15. I'll start in a minute. Yeah, should be good.
Are you able to see how many people are online?
If I had it up, I can't have it both up on my computer. Yes, you can see though. If you're logged in, you can be able to see it. But yeah, no, right now I just have this up, or my notes for this. Which this is incorrect.
Alex'in kompüterin adaptörü hiçbir kullanılmıyor.
İnce?
Alex computer or laptop anselan kompüter hazır. Which one would we need for his? Which one is it?
The one he had bought. He had a special one.
He has a special one. So
Yeah.
Why? Because Sunday he wants to use it downstairs at our luncheon.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure I gave it back to him. Inzi devadzer vor yes portsem. Yes unenam, so I can use it. But last time posetsav, I'm pretty sure I gave it back and I never got it back.
I'll ask him to bring it with him.
Yeah, yes, Chinim. So he should have it. Yeah, no, I don't have it for sure. Okay, well, we get started. If people are watching online, for the sake of the recording, I know most of you have gone through the parenting journey, so
We'll find out what we did wrong.
there you go. It's like, oh, what else could I have done? Yeah. Well, tornings are cheating because when you're a grandparent, you're not supposed to discipline. Yeah, you're supposed like I told my dad, I was like, your job is to spoil my kids. My job is to discipline them. Your job is to spoil them. And he's been doing a very good job. Too good sometimes. But that's totally fine. No, so that's the beauty of it. But yeah, parenting comes in all shapes and sizes. Ideally, in the perfect world, the church is a village. Every single one of us are raising each other's children. I mean, that should be the way it is. So we almost never really retire from parenting. We're constantly raising our friends' kids, our family's kids, and it's just a joyous. It's a period of time because especially all of you have so much experience, so much wisdom that it's going to be beneficial working with everybody. And we have a church, hopefully, that's multi-generational. It will work. And then as more kids start coming, it's just easier to think of it that way. So anyways, I think it's applicable for everybody. Parenting is something that we don't overlook. Yes, if you're a young couple, maybe you're not thinking about too much, but it's just excellent to get into that practice. So, but let me start again. We're recording, we're putting it online, so there's no reason not to start. So you know who I am. I think I've said that already, and then I made it clear last time we are not doing therapy. So that's very important to keep in mind. Going through the itinerary, we're going through the different examples that I've given. I've already mentioned I don't like the title 10 Commandments. I'm going to change that for next time. But for now, the idea is that we'll go through these 10 different rules that I've come up with. These are the most common things I talk about in my practice. When I'm working with parents, these are the things that come up most frequently, so they made it into the top 10. And then the idea is that we're going to kind of get a variety of descriptions. What are people using within this? And to get some examples, maybe some practice, and ideally you have a way to go moving forward. So that's the goal. So I gave a few of them. I'm not going to go through each one of them. Just as a reminder, though, we had the first commandment, which was kids are unique. And I talk about how the idea behind each kid has their own way of doing things. This is a great way to start because we were reminded that there's lots of things that our kids will do that are uniquely for them. And some things work for one kid, some don't other. If you have multiple kids, multiple siblings, you'll know that something works for one, but it doesn't work for the other. That's totally fine. I talked about breaking the shame cycle, especially in Armenian circles. Shame is very much used in our culture. And I think just getting out of that and getting a little bit more balanced, not saying shame is not, we get rid of it. That's a big push that happens in current society where we avoid all shame, and that shouldn't be the case. We should still, shame is it's an excellent pro-social behavior motivator. So having shame is fine, but getting a kid stuck in a shame cycle can be problematic and can be hurtful in the long run. We talked about rewards and punishments, the difference between both. Simply said, rewards are things that you do for a kid that you want them to increase their behavior, right? They do something good, you give them something, right? You do something good, you take away something that's being forced on them that they don't want in the first place. Punishments are, we see behavior we don't want them to do. So we're trying to reduce that behavior. So they're acting out, they get punished, they go on a timeout, they get spanked, whatever the punishment would be. If it's some sort of they have something that they usually have, they have 30 minutes of video game time every single day. You take away a few minutes from that as a punishment, right? You're reducing behavior. So that works in both ways. Balance is very good, but it has been shown positive reinforcement rewards are the most effective way of giving a child. And one of those is this idea of chores, teaching them how to work through moments and ultimately being able to get to a place where they're learning responsibility and doing stuff around the house. I mean, it's an effective way to be able to teach a kid what to do. And it's another way that they can be able to have something that you can attach reward to. You do this, you get this. And it's a very easy system that can be set up that way. So chores, that's what we landed on last time. So we're going to get some new ones going forward. So the next one, boundaries must be broken. Do not press the red button. And of course, I'm going to push it and see what happens. And that's what kids do. When we talked about these innate behaviors that children have, it's naturally wired. They are wired in their head to just do things. And we talked about a few of them last time. Let me just remind you, blinking, breathing, wanting to eat food, going to the bathroom. These are things that they just know I need to do it. So what's interesting about breaking boundaries, this is an innate behavior. Kids are wired to push boundaries. And it's okay for that to happen, especially if we come across some sort of level of coming to that understanding. Why is a kid pushing a boundary? It becomes very effective to be able to do that. Now, Alfred Adler was a psychologist. He described a very effective, it's called the STEP program. It's called Systematic Training in Effective Parenting. He taught parents how to interact with their kids. And his goal was to get kids to understand that every action a kid has a goal to it. He wants people to realize that kids do things intentionally. So when a kid lies, it's not that they're lying for the sake of lying, right? Which as parents, a lot of us may become very frustrated. I've had lots of parents that come in to my room, to my office. They sit down and I ask them, why do you want to bring your kid to therapy? And they give an example of my kid lied to me. And I'm like, okay, what else? But for them, no, they're stuck on the lying part. And the kid lies because of something. There's something that they're either hiding or they're trying to get. So the lying isn't the problem. It could be for certain people, but for majority of kids, they're too young for it to be a problem yet. So the lying isn't the problem. It's what are they trying to do? What are they trying to get? So what Adler taught is when you are working with your kid, ask questions. Try to figure out what's the goal behind what they just did. What are they trying to accomplish? So one of the most common examples that you probably already experienced or you will experience is a child who is told to brush their teeth. You tell their kid, brush your teeth. They go off and they brush their teeth. They come back and you ask them, did you brush your teeth? Yes. Okay. You believe them the first time, right? Second time, third time, maybe you're going to check on them. You check their bristles on their toothbrush. It's dry. You said you brush your teeth. Oh, yeah, I did it really fast. It's like, okay. You smell their breath. Hey, your breath doesn't smell like toothpaste. So next time maybe they learn. They maybe put a little toothpaste on there, right? They're trying to get, the lying isn't the problem. Figure out, okay, why are you pretending to brush your teeth? Do you not know how to brush your teeth? Did you not learn how to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush? Is there some sort of an obstacle that I'm not aware of yet? Are you trying to get to bed very quickly because you want your bedtime story faster? What is keeping you from actually brushing your teeth? So figuring out a little bit more in detail, what's going on? Why are you practicing this kind of behavior? And so instead of punishing for the lying, which oftentimes as parents, that'll be our gut reaction. We're going to say, you lied to it. That is not okay. We're going to punish the lying. There's certain times that's very effective and very needed because, of course, we don't want our kids to learn that lying's okay, that we're not trying to reward them for lying. But there's ways to be able to talk it through that, no, we don't lie to get through the situation. What are we trying to accomplish by you doing, by you creating this experience, by you hiding this in the first place? So you teach a child communication. You teach a child, how do you plan for your night? If you know that at 8:30, I'm going to send you to bed and you need to brush your teeth and be in bed by 9, then whatever you want to do, maybe you can start at 8:15. Do you want me to tell you it's 8:15 so you can do whatever? So there's ways to be able to work around this that we're not really landing on the lying part, which creates a frustrating experience for everybody, but we're trying to figure out why is the kid pushing up against that boundary and doing so in a way that is creating these difficult situations, or they're trying to create deception out of it. So let's practice a couple ideas. I just want to present a few. We can just talk it through together. So just imagine your child stole candy from the store after you told them no to buying the candy. How would you handle that situation? Using this idea of trying to question and kind of getting deeper into what's going on, how would you accomplish this? What would you do? They stole candy.
Stole it and we went home.
And you left home. Yeah, you got home, you seeing them eating candy that,
It's in the pocket or something.
yeah, they're eating it or it's in their pocket, they hid it. Yeah, how would you handle,
Probably going to ask them, where did you get it from?
for sure,
Then-
assume positive intent. Okay, where did
You
you,
know, where did you get it from? And then, why did you get it?
yeah,
You know, when I told you you can't get it.
right.
And then you wait for a response. And sometimes I think they give you a blank response, like they don't have an answer.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right, that's the most
You
common
just
answer.
know why you did it. You just not verbalize it.
I don't know, and they have chocolate over the face. I don't know. It's like, well, yeah, good.
Then we need to have paid for this.
Yeah.
So we need
Good.
to go back.
And that child needs to apologize to the person
Okay,
selling it,
okay,
and then be punished.
okay. So again, let's not focus on the stealing yet. We're not saying stealing's okay. We need to work on that. That needs to be talked about. The focal point will be, why did you push the boundary? Why did you feel that after my answer, you couldn't just leave the candy where it was? What was it about that? Let's say the kid just wanted to eat the candy, really wanted to eat the candy, but didn't know how to communicate that with you, didn't know how to talk about that with you. So when we punish the stealing, that's fine. It creates a frustrating experience for everybody. As a parent, it's frustrating. As a kid, it's frustrating to be able to see that. But if we get into this conversation where they're starting to understand that, okay, this is not okay action. This was never what I needed to do. How else could I have handled this situation? Well, Baba, Mama, if I do this, can I get the candy later? Right? Talking about compromise, talking about communication, talking about discussion. How do you get to verbalize what's going on in your mind without you making a impulsive decision and taking something without it being yours, right? The goal is to get underneath why that behavior happened. Now, if they keep on doing it, I think punishment is very much appropriate. That you're absolutely right there. But until that's the case, we need to be able to talk it through. And that's going to create a much safer environment for your kid to be able to then communicate what's going on in their head and be able to understand it more. Okay? Child cheated on a test at school. Okay? I picked difficult situations intentionally, right? Child cheated on a test at school. And I mean, we can say this is as early as 3rd grade, 4th grade. I mean, it doesn't have to be high school level or anything like that. But let me walk that through. Imagine what goes on in a child's mind for them to feel like they need to cheat on a test. They know it's wrong, right? Maybe in that situation, they know it's wrong. They shouldn't be cheating on a test. But they didn't study, and they're going to get a bad grade on the test. Maybe as parents, we've put pressure on them that you need to get these kinds of grades. So now they're trying to meet an expectation that I can't go to my parents with a bad grade. I need to cheat to get to that level. I can't take a bad grade on this test because I didn't study, because then it'll show that I wasn't trying hard enough. Whereas we teach a child it's okay to experience a low grade, because oftentimes, in fact, you can learn better from a bad grade than you do from a good grade. But a kid doesn't know that. They're not going to understand that. What they're going to do in the moment, they're going to do what's the first thing that comes to their mind. I don't want a bad grade. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do something so that I won't get a bad grade. See how that works? Kids are going to push boundaries. That is what's going to happen, because you have to think about it, that what a kid's doing when this is happening, it's as if they're not necessarily poking at walls, but it's like they're pushed into a corner. I don't know how else to react in this situation. That's a teaching moment. That's how we learn. To learn to get a bad grade and to be able to learn through that is something you're taught. It's not something that a kid just automatically picks up. Kids don't want to just get low grades because it's fun. It's something that becomes difficult for them. So they're going to try to push those boundaries of what I can do to get out of the situation without knowing that this situation is not something you need to get out of. We can do this together, right? So, make sense? Do you see how that works? Understand what is the core reason for why the kid is doing whatever they're doing. Let's be curious with a kid. Okay? Good? Which, with that mentality, picking your fights. This one is very common. This gets talked about all the time. This gets talked about with adults, with kids, all the perspectives. Because even from a kid's perspective, with how they deal with their parents, we talk about picking your fights. What picking your fight basically describes, you're basically saying which boundary that we've set, which limitation, which rules that we set is worth pushing back against my kid for or my parents for. This is worth fighting for. I always remember my attendee in internship. She had, we were in the mental health ward, so it was always people with either schizophrenia or bipolar. It was very severe cases of mental health that they would come in, we would interview them, and a lot of time there would be delusions. Delusions, of course, they're thinking all these things that are not true. And so I noticed my attendee would sometimes push back against the patient and tell them, no, that's not true. You can't believe that. But sometimes just kind of let it go. And it's like, okay, you believe that the sky is purple. No problem. I'll see you tomorrow. And just kind of let it. So I asked her one time, when do you decide which was which? When do you decide to just kind of let it go? When do you decide? She's like, well, it takes a bit of experience. She's been doing it for decades. It takes a bit of experience, but you get to know your patients and you get to know if this fight is going to be worth it or not. And the way she described it is there are hills that are not worth dying on. And that's how she kind of explained it, where you just know this fight's not worth it. With your kid, not every fight is worth it. It's not always worth it to get your kid to understand what the correct way of acting is. This kid right in here in the picture is stealing cookies from the cookie jar and looking for the parent. Where's the parent coming from? And sometimes, you know what? You let your kid take a cookie from the cookie jar. It's just deciding which boundaries are we supposed to fight over and which ones are we not supposed to fight. A psychologist named Minuchin, he described a very similar type of situation. Families create structures based on the way they interact. The mom has structure, the dad has structure, the brother has structure, the sister has structure, and the multiple siblings all have structure. They all have structure. And then the way a family works, all these structures come together like a big Lego piece. Imagine them all fitting together. Well, imagine when there's difficulty between family members, when those Lego pieces just don't fit properly, right? You're using a Duplo block and a Lego piece, and those blocks just do not match, right? They don't click together. Sometimes that happens with family. And so what you do is you try to figure out, okay, where are we going to have these situations where things are not going to fit? I'm not going to force that situation every single time. Or it becomes a timing situation. It becomes this idea, well, I've been hard on my kid all day. They've had a hard time. And I'm just going to let this one go. It's totally fine. You can mention it and be like, normally, this is not okay. But you know what? You've had a tough day. Go ahead. Grab what it is. Yes, correct. So that's why what happens as we teach familial roles, the family role of what you're supposed to do, the things that you do every single day are going to be the most effective. But recognizing that this is something we normally do, I'm letting it slide today, and then we're back at normal situation, normal protocol, is not going to ruin the kid's understanding of that rule. It's not. One time, after a week or two, is not going to do it. The best example I have of that, there are kids that restrict themselves from going to school. We get a lot of these in therapy, where they just refuse to go to school. Now, how does a kid not go to school? How's that possible? The parent doesn't. The parent's involved in this. So a kid deciding that I'm not going to school today also is coupled with a parent saying, okay, dear, I'm not going to take you to school. You're right. Let's stay home. Now, if a parent does that once in a while, where they say, yeah, you know, you had a tough time. Yesterday was difficult. We stayed up late. We were doing whatever we were doing. We had a tough time. He barely woke up. You look miserable. Stay home. Relax a little bit. Correct. That's the point. That's the point. So what ends up happening, if that one time turns into like one time every like 6 months, one time every a year, if that turns into one time every month, eventually it turns into one time every week. Okay, now we have a problem. The more consistent we are with the restricting, the more difficult it is going to be to flip that back. But if you do it once in a while, like, hey, you know what, kids, we're going to go to Disneyland today. We're not going to school. Right? If you do that every week, that's a problem. That's not going to work. So the consistency piece of it is very important, but we need to remember that doing it one time is not going to ruin a kid's understanding of what it works. But yeah, consistency matters. So what they learn is they learn how to generalize that familial role. Here's how they interact with each other. Here's how the parent situation works. Here's how the kid works. And that structure becomes something that they can learn. And over time, it becomes, you know this. Now, the picking your fight piece, that's really important. There's going to be certain things that it's a hard no. It's a hard boundary. This will never be, some of the things that we describe to parents. If your child hits you, no, that's a hard no. We're not going to do that ever. That's never okay. I might need to sit with my kid and hold them and remind them that this is not, who knows how far it's gotten. This is never okay. For some parents, it's okay to have kids that talk back to them. For other parents, they're like, nope, that's a hard no for me too. So it depends on the family. It depends on the perspective that's being offered. That's something that I always talk about. Are you okay with your kid going to bed at 8:30 every single night? My kids go to bed at 7. I mean, the sun's still up and I'm stuffing them into bed. You're done. So are you okay with, and they're like, yeah, it's totally fine. It works for our situation. Okay, I'm not going to push back. That's not a rule that we're going to need to deal with. Are you okay with your kid hitting you? No, I'm not. Okay, we need to make sure that this stays consistent. And you have to reverse that. It takes a lot of work to reverse that and get to a place that they can understand. This is the way it works. Mommy, daddy is correct in saying certain things and teaching you how to act. You need to listen as the child. So that becomes an important thing to do. So let's practice this for a second. What rule do you have in your family that can never be broken? Who feels comfortable sharing that? What rule do you have? Never, and think back to your childhood if you want. What rule never could be broken? Anyone have anything? Yeah.
Kids can't hit us. So
Good.
sometimes in our anger will hit
Yeah.
any human, like
Yeah.
usually parents or big brother.
Yeah.
In our anger. I mean, Shadham will be good, but
That needs to be good. Very good example. Yeah, the hitting part is a very common one for kids. So good. Anyone else? Do you have one?
Just, like no vulgar language.
Okay.
And I was thinking way simpler than that was simple rules we had was like no eating in the bedroom.
Okay, there you go.
And we had rules that you can't sit in the living room and eat. We always sit at the dining room, but Fridays we sit in the living room with the TV on with the movie night.
There you go.
We had a rule: Friday night we can do it, but the rest of the week,
Not okay.
You know,
Yeah, good. Very good example.
But I have something follow up to ask. Is like, how does it work when you have multiple kids, and some fall, forget about it, but then it becomes still. This is a simple thing.
Yeah.
And it could be so simple. I mean, anybody can do. Why don't you close the cap of the toothpaste?
Yep.
Simple things. Why don't you do this?
Right. Yep.
So how do you deal with that when you have multiple kids and one is not wanting to do
Right.
a basic thing?
Right. Well, I mean, I would say, because it's going to depend on the situation, I would say the consistency is still key.
Yeah.
If they haven't still done it, you still lay into it, especially if this is a fight that you're going to pick, that no, this one we want to make sure we're doing. Now, if it eventually becomes, because remember the first slide, all kids are unique. Yeah. So if it eventually becomes like, you know what, this is not worth it. This is not worth it. Now you start teaching the other kids that, well, here's the way it works. This is why we're inconsistent with this child as opposed to you two. That's why I always say multiple kids are not by addition, they're by multiplication. When you have one kid, it's 1 times harder. When you have 2 kids, it becomes 8 times harder. It's not the same. It's not just 2, because it just adds so many layers to that interaction and then the moment you have 3, you're outnumbered as parents immediately. So there's not much you can do to be consistent, and parenting styles change from first kid to third kid, of course. So the same rules apply, but there's a lot more flexibility, unfortunately. So it just kind of depends. Is this going to be something that is this hill you're going to die on? And if it is, then yeah, you got to stay with the consistent, increase punishment if it's needed, if it's a behavior that you're trying to reduce, increase reward if it's a punishment you're trying to increase. If it's a behavior you're trying to increase, and just unique to that child because it might not work with the other ones. Yeah, great question. There's never a clear answer though. That's the beauty of parenting. That's why there's 10 rules that we're trying to, something might fit eventually. Any rule that you can think of that was lenient, that your parents said it, but every once in a while when you broke it, they didn't seem to always mind. Like it kind of just like went by the wayside.
Come late home.
Okay, good, yeah. Be here by 8, 8:45. Next time, 9:15. Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm sure eventually it's like 11:30, like, Lon, like what's going on? Like we said 8 and you're coming home 3 hours later. So maybe eventually, but yeah, that's a good example of one. There's like setting this precedence that just doesn't get met.
Because they grow at the same time.
Right.
So the time can be more lenient.
Sure. Yeah. But the argument here that's really important to keep in mind, and this will come up a little bit later, communication becomes very important. Letting your kid know that, hey, you came home an hour and a half late, but you know what? You've been, it's not like I've been worried. You've been communicating with me that you're going to come late. Things are okay. So maybe we should move the deadline a little further back and just meet it. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not being a pushover by doing that. You're recognizing your kid's behavior. You're rewarding them for consistency. Now, if they're coming home and they smell like alcohol, you can tell they're stoned, like you're seeing all these problems with it, okay, maybe you need to be a little bit more restrictive. But overall, if you recognize it, communicate that, use that as a reward system to recognize that I see what you're doing and let's keep building on this. Keep doing it. So, great example. Good? Overcorrection. So overcorrection is, in psychology, what we describe is instructing someone to fix something. You're literally thinking of overcorrection. Correction is you're teaching a kid what you did was wrong. Overcorrection is what you did was wrong, now reverse it, fix it, take care of what you just did, right? We call that overcorrection. So the classic example, Efina did this morning, spilled food, right? What do? Clean it up. That's your responsibility now. You got it. You made a mess. Time to clean it up. So she came to me and was like, Baba, I need a paper towel. And I knew immediately that she spilled something. So got her a paper towel. She can't reach it. Got her a paper towel. She went and cleaned it, threw it away in the trash. Perfect. That's it. I don't need to get upset at her spilling. Now I do if she does it on purpose. This happened a week ago. She spilled on purpose, and I got very upset about that. I get upset for spilling on purpose. An accident is fine. You know how to take care of it. Now, there's a problem with overcorrection. There's an ethical dilemma that creates. It can be coercive. When you're telling your kid to do something, especially when it's your kid, it's a little different. But when you're telling another kid, like this happened to me. I have a kid who ADHD comes in bouncing off the walls, and he just comes in like when I'm doing therapy, when he's just lying on the floor and talking with me. And so he's lying on the floor. So one of the days he untied my shoes and tied them together while we're talking. I'm like, that's not okay. How are you going to take care of this right now? And so he started to tie my shoes, and it felt yucky. I'm not going to get a kid to tie my shoes like that. That kind of overcorrection felt bizarre, uncomfortable. So the way to correct that, the best way is to come alongside your kid and to do it with them, right? Overcorrection's great. If you tell a kid, okay, you made a mess, time to clean it. Let's start. And we do it together. Here, I'll take care of the blocks, you take the big bins and you put them away. Whatever it could be that you're doing it with the kid, it's a really effective way to be able to teach a kid. Now, the other thing that I find very effective with kids is the do-over. Because what it teaches a kid is that not all behavior is locked in. Not all behavior has one chance and you're done. That you can now try again. So common one that happens, my office is at the end of the hallway. You can see my door open. So when a kid walks in, they just bolt down the hallway and just take a slight right and they're in my office. And they usually just take off running. So usually we don't do that because who knows if someone walks out and just kind of smashes into them. So usually I'll be like, whoa, come back. Let's try that again. Here's how we walk to my office. And we walk together. And then sometimes I play with them. I start walking a little faster and like, can you keep up with me? They're like speed walking. So you can make it a game. You can have them learn, okay, this is how we do this together. It's a very effective way to be able to teach a kid that this is behavior that it's not okay. And especially for that kind of behavior that's very confusing, we do this in groups a lot. If a kid takes something from somebody else. Let's try that again. You take it out of the hand, put it in the hand. How else could you have done that? And a kid will think about it. They'll sit there and be like, I could have asked. Great, let's try it. They ask for it, and the kid says no. That's okay. That's part of it. That's how it works. So even if you do it over, you don't always get what you want. And then that's another teaching method, a teaching moment that comes in. So overcorrection, very effective way. Teaching your kid responsibility, but then also being able to teach a kid, these are the kinds of behaviors that we want to maintain.
Do you think though that sometimes kids will rebel and they'll purposely not do it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've had that as well.
A reaction out of you.
Yes.
And then, but how do you get them to still correct it?
Right.
You tell them do this, and then you know it's wrong, and then they go, oh, I did it, and you see it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's not done right. And you tell them, would you like me to show you? No, I know how to do it. But obviously, they're purposely not doing it right. Yeah. So, you're like, I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah. So you nailed it. They're trying to get attention. What is that? Again, that's that Adler view of like, okay, what are you trying to get at by doing this kind of behavior? What's your goal here? Is it trying to get my attention? Then am I not showing enough attention? Am I just ordering a kid to do certain things and kind of ignoring them? And they know that if they don't do something right, then I'll be able to pay attention to them. So that's a different conversation now. Now it's a different kind of interaction that they're looking for. But if they're just refusing, okay, then the ideal way to handle that is that if you're refusing what you're doing, then we're not going to continue. If there's like a game that we were playing, for example, we're not going to go on. One of the rules I have is if we're playing a game, you don't just switch to another game and leave it on the table or leave it on the floor. We got to clean up. Then we can play the next game. So if they start going and opening up the next box, I'm like, we're not going to play that game until this is taken care of. No, I'm not going to clean it up. No problem. We're not going to play the next game. We're just going to sit here. And I've had one kid who has pushed back and just sat there. And we sat for 30 minutes, did nothing. And the next session when he came back, he was like, I really want to play today. I'm like, are you going to listen? And he did. It was there. Now that's part of the situation that he has, but that's a very extreme case where he just gets into these moments and he refuses to do anything. And even with parents, he's like, we leave him alone for like an hour. He just sits there, refuses. It's like, well, we got to break that down. You set the boundary and you got to be consistent with it. And eventually the kid's they're not going to want to sit like that. That's not going to be part of it. So it just depends on why is that kid doing it, trying to get to that core understanding. But it's about being consistent, like we talked about. The consistency is key. Timeouts. So in the way overcorrection, we don't use it enough. Timeouts are awesome. Lots of timeouts all over the place. Very specific kind of timeout though. There's a unique nature with a timeout. The timeout is a balance where it's most commonly probably thought of as a punishment, right? You don't do this, I'm going to put you on timeout. No, I'm going to do it, right? I think I gave the story last time of Yuffie being just devastated by timeouts, while Efina loves timeouts. She was like, really? And goes on timeouts. It's not like that anymore now, but before, first 2 years of the timeout effectiveness was there. So the unique nature of a timeout, though, is that it's a punishment, most commonly. But the irony of a timeout is that sometimes we want a timeout, especially as parents. We're like, you know what? I need a break. That's a very effective way of using a timeout. So how do you balance this now, where you're teaching a kid a timeout's a bad thing, you're going to get punished with it, but then at the same time, to teach that characteristic of sometimes you need to pull yourself away from a situation to either assess the situation, breathe, and kind of regather your thoughts, and then put yourself back in. So there's ways to do that. Again, comes back to communication. You teach your child, here's how timeouts work when it's a punishment. You're going to sit in the corner, you're going to have no toys, you're going to be sitting there for a few minutes, and then you're going to come back into the situation, whatever it was that you were doing, because you are getting punished for it. But if you go with your child and sit with them, especially if they had a big emotion, right? They couldn't control their emotion, a big impulsive action, whatever it happened, you sit with them. And sometimes what we need to do is to go put ourselves on a timeout. Right? We go and we sit away. Maybe you hold them next to your chest so that you can do a breathing exercise so they feel you breathing. You may breathe for a minute. And sometimes you need that. Okay, now let's talk about that again. Whatever it was that created the big, come back to it so that they recognize that this timeout is beneficial. It's useful for being able to do whatever it is that they're doing. Let's teach the child that there's a bad timeout. There's a timeout that I'm going to force you on, but then there's also a really good timeout that lots of parents use, lots of people use because it's very effective for what we're doing. So the way that I like to teach it is this idea, the shift from co-regulation to self-regulation. Co-regulation, regulation, of course, you're regulating. Your emotions are getting out of control. You're trying to bring those emotions back. You're regulating your emotions. Co is co-op. You're doing it with somebody. So a co-regulation, an example of that is a parent co-regulating with their kid. My kid has big emotions. I'm going to sit with him or her in timeout and teach them that sometimes when we have these big emotions, we're going to need to breathe through them. We may want to imagine being in a comfortable location, whatever it is, whatever you do as a parent, let's calm ourselves down and then let's get back into that situation. Maybe it's not punishment, but you're teaching a kid this is the way that a timeout works. Because eventually a kid will be able to get self-regulated. They'll recognize this is something they do. Eventually, I'm talking about it could take years, right? It's not something that every single time, because of course, every situation is different, kid's going to react. Efina had the funniest moment. They're yelling at each other, and then I start yelling at them to whatever the situation was. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then Efina turned to me with anger in her eyes. I'm going on a timeout, and just walked out the room and went and sat down. And I was like, that's actually exactly what we want, and we want to be able to get that understanding. So I went and checked in on her. She was crying in the room. But the mentality is that we're teaching a kid, this is how we handle that situation. That happened once out of many times. It's not something consistent, right? So we, over and over again, we co-regulate so they learn how to self-regulate. And timeout is a very effective way of doing that.
What's different than go to the room?
Same.
We never, in our time,
Yeah.
we had this timeout thing.
Ha ha ha. Yeah.
It's a new thing for us.
Yeah.
In the States.
Yeah.
But is that the same?
Same thing.
You need to see them while they're in the corner timeout.
No, that doesn't, it just depends on the situation. If a
In
kid,
their room, they can do anything they want.
right,
It's not what you want.
right,
You want them to be thinking,
yes.
meditating.
Yeah. So it depends on the house. Depends on the house. Like that's one of the reasons Efina was very happy about timeouts. She goes and she plays with all her toys. And I'm like, no, that's not a timeout. So the idea there is if a timeout is a punishment, they go sit somewhere and you don't have to see them necessarily. That just depends on the kid. But as the punishment, you don't get to do other things. But if you're doing your timeout yourself, go to your room, play, kind of get away from whatever it is and then come back. So it just depends on certain people's rooms. It's empty. There's nothing in there. The toys are in the game room or in the living room, wherever they are. So certain people's rooms are a punishment. So it just depends on the situation. But I think for most people, we want to avoid sending them somewhere, especially if it's a punishment, sending them somewhere that they want to be. We put them somewhere that they don't want to be. I still remember in Sunday school, I don't want to say who the teacher was. I don't want to say who the student was. Sunday school here, we had a person that was acting out. And so there was a location that we would get sent. And we knew what there was. There was a bunch of drawers and there were a bunch of toys in there. So they would just go play. So the teacher realized that this was happening. So he's like, okay, go over there. And then he realized what was happening. He's like, no, hold on. Stay in your seat, turn around, put your back to the table and just face the wall. And just had him facing the wall for the next 10 minutes. It's like, yeah, because we're recognizing that, no, this is supposed to be a punishment. This is not supposed to be something you're enjoying. But teaching them the distinction is really important. To recognize that, yeah, this one stinks when you're punished for it, but you don't have to be. You can decide that I need a timeout and I'm going to pull myself away, go do whatever it is that is going to make me comfortable. So timeouts, very, very effective, very, very helpful. Modeling. Here's where it becomes, oh yeah, sorry.
I just had a quick question regarding the timeout.
Yeah.
I think it also can be hurtful in a sense too, depending on when and where you do it.
Yeah.
Because I remember I got punished a lot when I was a kid. I just had loaded energy. And I just remember there was one leader in our church. It was like during Boys Brigade on Wednesday night.
Okay.
We did like a kind of Boy Scouts, Christian Boy Scouts type thing. And I did something, I remember I did something, I like got in a fight with the kid.
Okay.
And he sent me timeout.
Yeah.
And I was like 7 or something like that at the time. And he put me in the corner with a chair facing the wall.
Right.
Just an earshot of everybody else.
Yeah.
So I hear everyone else sitting there laughing.
Yeah.
Like, talking about me, and I'm just fuming and fuming
Yep.
and fuming and fuming, and then the next thing you know, I had enough of it.
Yeah.
I stormed out, slammed the door, went down the stairs, back into the classroom. I was like, I'm not just gonna deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna listen with that.
Yeah.
And in a sense, for me, it caused me to get even angrier at the people around me.
Right.
And I feel like, and again, I caught myself doing that later on the other side of things.
Right.
And these boys, same scenario. I was leading the boys group at that point, and just as the thing, they were jumping around.
Yeah.
I've already spoken to them 1,000 times. They were punching each other, laughing at each other, like, they're boys being boys.
Right.
And I told them, I was like, look, you're being disrespectful of everybody's time here. They're taking their time out of the day. I tried to reason with them.
Right.
And then I was like, look, that's it. Last straw. Next time you guys do this, I'm lining y'all up and you're doing push-ups.
Sure.
Sure enough, we're waiting to get into the main hall to the games and stuff like that. And I lined them all up and dropped them down for 20.
Yeah.
As all the Pioneer girls were coming out.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you sit there like, oh, what are they doing? They're talking, they're laughing at them and stuff like that. And then one kid came up to me and was like, I don't like that you did that.
Okay.
Not in front of these people.
Sure.
I don't like that you did that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to forget this. And next thing you know, I get a call from the mom.
Sure.
And they're like, did you drop my son down for 20 push-ups in the middle? I was like, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
They're like, who are you to punish my son? I was like, fair enough.
Right. Yep.
I mean, but it really, for him, it hurt him more than it fixed the problem.
Correct. Yeah. So you brought up a good point. That's no longer timeout. That's now public humiliation. And so that's different. You just added a whole new layer to, we're now far removed from this behavior is something we want to reduce, which there's some people that public humiliation is very effective. They will never again do what they were doing. But Yeah, that's that balance of
That
knowing.
relationship was the-
Yes. Yes.
He didn't do it again. He's very well behaved the rest of the time.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
was very well behaved when it happened to me.
Yes.
But at the same time, that relationship with that person
Is strained.
Was strained a bit.
Yes, correct. Yeah, very good example. So I think that becomes the key. Again, that's why the first rule that I mentioned was kids are unique. Every kid's going to be different. So there's going to be certain situations where that public humiliation, man, that sticks with you and it'll stay with you forever. But then in other ones, you don't want the relationship strain. So you want to be able to know when you can do what. And I think that becomes important, especially as parents with your own kids, but especially when you're now kind of touching touching other relationships, and it becomes a very important, especially when I don't know how your families react to those situations. So yeah.
In that case, is it a good idea to say, okay, I'm sorry or something? Or
Sure. Yeah. Of course. I don't think any parent ever has. That should have been probably one of those. It's okay to recognize a mistake as a parent. I've only had actually one couple that came in the 2 years I've been doing this practice, who the parents came in saying, we've made mistakes and we've told our kid we're sorry. Like, it's been a very verbal back and forth, and it's appreciative from both sides. Now there is a balance to that as well, because you don't want the parents like everything is a mistake. Like, you kind of get your act into gear. You're the adult, like figure it out. But yeah, I don't think there's any problem with just apologizing, and I'm not going to do that next time, because you probably remember that too. You're not going to do that next time.
I apologize to the parent. I apologize to the kid.
There you go.
I apologized to the kid multiple times, and we were cool with it afterwards. It was
Great.
Just like, for me, that was just like, okay, that's the final straw, and as
Of course.
an instructor as well in karate, like that's when a kid gets out of line, he's like, hey man, 20 push-ups over there.
Sure. Yeah.
And this
It's
is
consistent
my
with.
class, over there.
Yep. Absolutely. Modeling. Okay, this is really important, and unfortunately, this is where we start looking inward. We start to look at ourselves. I love this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures, where you have a kid on his phone with mom on her phone, next to a mom with a book and a kid on a book. And how do you get your child to read books? Well, it's kind of simple. You do it, and they'll follow you. And that's kind of the idea that we get. So this idea of innate behaviors, there's things that a kid will just naturally do. Everything else is learned. They learn how to do things. They pick it up. I know we get these feelings of our kids being so advanced and they pick things up on their own, and they don't. They learn it. Everything is learned. So there could be certain things that they're more adept to, but everything is learned. And you start a kid off from 2 years old doing something, they're going to be really good at it by the time they're 12 if they stick to it. Majority of the chess players, if you look up the chess players, the high-level Fidos, the ones that are the world champion, they're at the top, they start when they're 2-3 years old, right? Gymnastics, same idea, and it has to do with like body, but you start young, and that's how you get to that level. Everything is learned. So how does a kid learn? Well, Albert Bandura did a very simple experiment. With this, he talked about something called social learning. If your kid watches something, they'll pick it up. They'll do it themselves. And he had a very simple experiment. You can see it online, actually. From the 1960s, they have videotape of it. They have it online. You can look it up on YouTube. Bandura's social learning experiment, where there's a clown named Bobo. It's those, I'm sure you've seen those inflatable dolls that are weighted on the bottom, where you knock it over, it comes right back up, right? So if a kid has that toy, they're not going to really know what to do with it. Now, if they see an adult punching the toy, kicking it, flipping it over, guess what the kid's going to do next time they get a chance to be able to play with that toy? Punching the toy, kicking it, flipping it. They do what they see. And it's consistent all the way across the board. If you want your kid to do something, you should be showing them how to do it, or just you doing it in the first place. So the idea is very much effective, and about what you say as well. What you say gets repeated. They learned that. Efina right now says abao. That she didn't come up with that. She didn't learn it at school. She learned it from one of us, either me or Garina. I forgot who it was. I think it's me. So just the kid's going to imitate what they hear and see. That's how they learn. That's how they pick stuff up. So the idea becomes, what are you doing in front of your kid that they're going to pick it up? If you yell at your kid, guess what your kid's going to learn how to do? Yuffie does this all the time. The moment Effina says something wrong, I hear Yuffie spring up. Why? Because Garnet and I yell. It's very straightforward. We are yellers. That's kind of the language that we speak, the volume that we have. We have loud and louder. And so Yuffie picked that up. And that's kind of the way it works for all kids. They're going to figure things out. Now, there are going to be circumstances where a kid's going to not want a certain type of behavior. But that comes later. Up until then, kids are going to imitate what they see and what they hear. So if you want to be different, if you want your kid to be different, you have to be different, right? And so that works all the way across the board. That's why I love that idea that you described of like, we eat together at the dining room table. Now, if you say we eat together at the dining room table, but you're on the couch on Mondays and Tuesdays, it's like, Mom, like, what's going on here? And they're going to be all over the place. It's inconsistent. So, no, we're sitting here. You're the first one sitting down. You're the one that's showing them this is what we're doing. Even though, like Garnet and I, for example, for over a decade, we didn't have kids. So we sat around the couch to eat. Well, eventually we're like, no, we want to do this as a family. So we have to sit at the table in the first place. That's how they're going to pick it up. That's how they're going to learn from the first place. So think about this for yourself. And you don't have to answer this out loud, but what kind of behavior do you feel like you have which you don't want your kid to pick up? You don't want your kid to see this doing it. Now, here's the dilemma. You begin to hide things from your kid. That's a problem for a different reason. You don't want that. You want to be consistent. Change who you are so that consistency flows into who they are. You're not trying to hide things from your kid. Like, where are we at right now? You're the parent. You teach them this is the behavior that is consistent. And maybe for the next 18 years, you don't do whatever it is that you felt like you needed to do. They move out of the house, then go back to whatever behavior that is that you felt like very comfortable about doing. But until then, it is completely fine to be able to be consistent in front of your kid and to be able to teach them by modeling. Modeling is an effective teacher. You learn that way all the time. And especially, I talked about this at the beginning, when we come to a church setting, somewhere a situation like this, where we watch each other. We see what each other does. I mean, that's a very helpful way about learning how to interact with anything. It works across the board. We learn just how to interact all together based on watching each other. So pay attention to that. You're being watched. It's okay to be able to adjust your behavior accordingly. Last one, screen time. I thought this would be appropriate to end on. Let's talk about screens. Doom scrolling. I'm sure we've heard that before. I'll talk about all this. So screens is a very unique situation. There you go. Yes.
Well, I took a picture of you.
Perfect. Good. We're bringing all 9 commandments, I guess, together into this idea. This is one of the most volatile, most confusing, most misconstrued behaviors that children have. Now, I always remind parents when they walk in, I am a gamer. So you are getting the bias of a person who plays hours of games. If I had the choice, I would sit for all day and play if I could. But I'm an adult, so I can't. So there's certain situations. So whenever parents hear that, they get really happy because they know their kid plays way too much. Okay, they're going to get a balance of, okay, here's how you can kind of moderate the way it works, because screens as a whole are not bad, but there are some dangers that we should keep track of. So the dangers of screens is that what it does is it outsources our ability to do things, right? From the creation of the television, it started in 1927. Over almost 100 years ago, the television was created. What has been happening is that our imagination has been outsourced, right? We watch somebody else's imagination being acted out, played out in front of us. What was entertainment back then? You turn on the radio and hear a story and imagine the story yourself. You have no moving pictures. There's nothing in front of you other than audio coming into your head. You sit back, you either close your eyes, but you do something so that you're enjoying whatever that process is. TV replaced that with, now I'm going to show you a picture. There's nothing wrong with it. TV's great. It's awesome. Screens are great. But we're no longer relying on our own imagination. We're now relying on somebody else's. So the issue happens the way that screens get used. So screens, all the testing that's been done, screens have been shown to have the same effect on your brain as drugs do. Any drug, of course, drugs have the other effect of putting a substance into your body. That's bad, right? But the dopamine reaction, that reward system, is exactly the same. When you use screens, it's the same satisfaction as taking a shot of alcohol or taking taking some crack, taking a drag, whatever it is, whatever drugs you're taking. The brain reacts the same way. That dopamine, that reward system activates. When you're watching something, it has the same effect as it does. So that's the first thing. It's addicting. Okay, it's an addicting behavior. Screens itself are going to have that effect on you. And the same way as drugs, it also has thresholds. So what are drugs? What's the threshold of drug? Well, with a drug, you take a little bit and you feel really good. It's very satisfied, right? And then the next time you take that drug, you need to take a little bit more to get the same feeling, right? It's a curve. You're going to take a little bit more. And with the danger with drugs, you're not supposed to have certain amounts of certain drugs. So when you take too much, there's a limitation to your body, you overdose, right? So drugs have a natural consequence with them that if you take too much, you can kill yourself. Screens are the same effect. They have a threshold. You do a little bit, it has that effect. You feel satisfied. Next time you need to do a little bit more. But the thing about screens, you don't really, what's the limitation to your life on screens? What, you don't eat? You don't go to work? You don't do certain things? That's days. You can be stuck doing the same thing for hours on end and not really feel that dangerous effect of what drugs can do, which sends you to the hospital. Screens have no threshold as well. They just keep going. They just fly up. And you have to do more and more and more to get that same satisfaction that you want. The last piece of screens, similar to drugs, they're self-reinforcing. You do screens because it feels good. And then you feel good, so then you do screens. It's a cyclical pattern. You're going to keep doing it because it keeps doing what it's supposed to do. For some people, it's cathartic. They're going to go to a screen because they don't feel good. They had a long day at work. They had a long day at school. I just want to go home and get online. I want to go and play video games. And so I feel bad, so I'm going to do screens. And when I do it, I feel good. So what's going to happen next time you feel bad? Well, screens. It worked. It's an effective way to make you feel good. So they're self-reinforcing, similar to drugs. Very addictive. And self-reinforcing things, if you ever look it up, are the most addicting because they just never go away. You're always going to be needing them. They're always useful for you until a person just decides, I'm going to get rid of it. But it's types of screens that matter. And that's the key. As the parent, your job is to know what your kid's doing on the screen. That's ultimately number one. Because at the end of the day, what is a screen? It's a tool, right? If your kid is sitting there for hours learning phonemes and understanding words and learning grammar, under what circumstances is that going to bother you? Great, you're doing education. Keep doing it. You're learning math. You're doing algebra. Especially with current ways that screens are getting used, where they've been gamified, right? Turning the learning into a game, which is very much Montessori type learning for a kid. With Montessori, anyone ever heard of Montessori? I mean, it's pretty common, right? Montessori, there's no teachers in classrooms, right? There's no teachers in classrooms. What they're called, there are adults. It's not like kids are just running around. What the adults are called are guides. And the way it works in a Montessori classroom, it's by experience. You go and you learn by self-directed, but then there's a guide, an adult that comes alongside you, kind of like a mentor. There's no lessons. You're not going to sit there and like, this is the way this experiment works. No, you just have all the pieces of the experiment and you figure it out. You do it yourself. Screens are in and of themselves a Montessori experience where a kid is self-directed, is learning on their own. The guide is the iPad or the iPhone or the whatever the device is, computer. So that's problematic, but that's where the parent comes in. You should be able to know, what is my kid doing on the screen? The best example of the danger of types of screens is looking at the progression of video games. Okay, 1980s, Super Mario Brothers #1 was released, right? 1984. And the game itself, if anyone's ever played it, actually, I was just talking to a kid today. He's like, that's the hardest game ever. I'm like, buddy, like, come on. Like, what are you talking about? But if you're new, if you're 6 years old, 7 years old, you're picking up for the first time, you're going to run across and you're going to hit that first Goomba and you're going to die. And you're going to get the feeling of what it's like to lose a life. It didn't work. I failed. And what do? You build hand-eye coordination. That when I run across the screen, I need to press the A button to jump and avoid that. And now there's going to be more obstacles that are coming along the way, and I need to learn. With original Mario Brothers and other types of games that way, the dopamine, the satisfaction comes when you finish the level. Well, how do you finish levels? You have to get good. You have to learn how to play. And how do you do that? Well, practice. You learn endurance. You learn perseverance. You learn better hand-eye coordination so you can respond. I still found it entertaining whenever I would play with certain kids and they're trying to move left on the controller and they move with their whole body, right? That's hand-eye coordination. I mean, you're learning how to separate. I'm just pressing a button. I don't need to move my entire body to be able to do that. And maybe it's you. I'm not making fun of you. It's just like that it's just that system is learned. It's a physical practice that you have to go through. So in order to get that satisfaction, you have to get good at the game. If you order to beat the whole game, that's the most satisfying feeling that you can get. I still remember the first time I beat Mario Brothers. It was like one of the best days of my life. It felt so good to be able to do that. I had to get good enough to be able to do that. Current games, the problem is that bar has been lowered, right? There's dailies. You do something every single day, you get something for it. What's a daily? Log into the game. Well, no kidding, I can do that. I just have to turn on the game. I just get it, and I get a reward for logging in. Play one game. You don't have to win. You don't have to do anything. You just have to play. You get in, you just jump off a cliff, and then you get it. So now the bar has been so lowered. Why? To draw people in, to pull in anybody. Because a high skill level is needed to do well in certain games. Well, what happens if you don't have that skill level and you can't do the things and get all the rewards? You're going to stop playing. And what happens to the game developers? Well, the game developers make money off of the people that play, especially the ones now. There's subscriptions. You pay monthly. You pay frequently. Arcades at the time, I remember how difficult they were. Why did they make so much money? Because you kept on putting quarters because you kept on dying. You got to get better at the game. They want you to have that. But then the irony of the games now, if they dangle a carrot at the end of the stick, right? They say, get good at the game and you can get this. But they don't know how to develop a game. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to create these games pretty well. So you get that. You also stop playing. They lose money. So what they've relied on for current games is addiction and the hardest part, the things that you get, the game name for this is a loot box. A random assortment of items and resources that every day is different. Well, what does that tag into? That tags into gambling. Very simply. And one of the most effective ways to get a kid addicted, or anybody addicted to anything, is by gambling. Gambling is very addicting for everybody. So if you turn that into the game, there was actually a lawsuit that came out a few years ago about whether or not it's illegal to do loot boxes. And then the way that the lawsuit ended, they said it's not illegal as long as you put the odds on what you can get in the box. The addiction is still there. That changed nothing. If your kid is playing these kinds of games uninhibited, the danger is they're addicted way beyond what they can control. And it's very difficult to pull that back. You got to be cautious about the types of screens that are being used. Yeah?
I would also argue that it does bring in that kind of fear of missing out. And so
Yes.
if your kid already has that fear of missing out, you're exemplifying that fear of missing out even more.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because a lot of the stuff is like, oh yeah, do all this, get really good in the next 7 days, or
You'll never get this again.
You'll never get this again.
And you see your buddy with it, and you're like, oh, he has it, I got to get it. And now you're playing for hours on end. Yes. 100%. Absolutely. It is a very insidious method for the way to get people to play the games. The games themselves are terrible now. They're just awful. Game-wise, they're garbage. They're not good games, but they're addicting. It doesn't matter if they're not good. You don't want to miss out what everyone else has. You don't want to be behind. You want to get that feeling of opening a box and seeing what's inside. And it's like, oh, I didn't get it. I have to do it tomorrow. It's like, it's the worst type of game to be able to draw a kid into. And so, as a parent, Your job is to provide purpose. You need to make it clear, here's why we do games. And so I give 3 examples of this. By the way, just to make a mention, social media works the same way, right? Social media works the same way. Games are not the only thing. I know I talk about that mostly. But social media, what was social media before? Sending an email, right? You go onto your inbox, there's nothing in there, there's not much to do. You get out of your inbox and you go on with your life. But with social media, there's always something to do, right? That's where the term doom scrolling came from, where you're just flipping your thumb. This guy did it and he's dead now, right? You just keep through, and the way the algorithm works, by the way, the way the system works, you're always going to get a video or a post that's slightly related, but just different enough that it's always new. It's not like it works where I'll do it for 15 minutes. I made myself all the way around. I'm back to the same video. I'm done. No, you get a new video. You can do that for the rest of time. You're going to get a new video. It is unbelievable. And especially now, which I'm starting to play around, like I'm trying to figure out like, how long do I have to wait to see what kind of video shows up? Like, what do I have to play it multiple times? So I'm trying to see, and like, I get a random video. I'm like, I never watched anything related to this before. So I try to scroll through that quickly so that it doesn't remember that, oh, he waited a few seconds. He wants to watch. Like they're really getting you and grabbing your attention in ways that are very dangerous. Imagine being back in that situation. I want to know if my friend likes my picture. I'm going to send my friend a picture. I email it to you. Did they check? Oh, ding! I got a ding. Okay, I look at my phone. Oh, nope, it's garbage. Okay, I move on. I'm done. I have nothing else to do in the inbox. Very much changed. So same works for that. And going back to modeling, right? If we're stuck on the screen scrolling and your kid's seeing you do that, or if the first thing you do when you wake up is you grab your phone and check your Instagram, your kid's going to notice that, oh, is this what we normally do? Once I get my phone, I'm going to do that. So here we go. Let me give you 3 things and we'll finish. So 3 things. Define limits for the screens. Make it very clear. This is how long we spend, right? If it's a time limit, right? I've had some parents that their Wi-Fi turns off at 8 o'clock at night. You're done. Your Wi-Fi's done. Internet's done. For the whole house. Everyone's off. And whatever device they're on, if they were doing anything that had internet, you better watch out because you're done. If they're playing a game and they're in the middle of it, you know the rule, 8 o'clock. So make sure you start your games early. The other one that my wife and I do with Yufi and Efina is very specific moments of the day. Ironically, during a sermon. We want you to be quiet. We want you to stay focused on something else and not distracted. We're going to give you an iPad during the sermon. That 30 minutes is done. And we want you to start running around. Usually the kid is like engrossed into the iPad, so I just yank it out of their hands, and it's like they're a new person, and they start running around and they do things because that's kind of what it does. It brainwashes you and gets you into a way of thinking. So first, set the limits. Whether it's time, whether it's amount, whatever it could be, set it very clear. Don't surprise them, right? Don't make it this random situation that they don't know if it's coming or is it not coming. It's consistent. I've even encouraged certain parents, don't take it away for bad behavior, because there's certain kids that it's like the only form of communication for them. Like if they have none for the day, it could be devastating. It's okay. It's okay. There'll be other things that you can take away. Trust me, kids are resourceful. So being able to teach them that certain kinds of things, it's okay. Don't surprise them. So define limits first. Second, you need to know what your kid does. Every parent that walks into my room, I ask them, what's your screen time policy? That's always one of the questions. And whenever they tell me, I'm like, okay, this is the way this is going to go. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. Because the follow-up question to that, what is your kid's favorite game? And those parents rarely know. You need to know what your kid is doing. What is your kid doing for hours, especially when it's an adolescent who's on there for hours? How do you not know what your kid is doing for hours? Would you let your kid do whatever they want for that kind of amount of time in a random location? That's what the internet basically is. It's a connection to the world outside. You gotta be aware, what is your kid doing? What's your kid's favorite game? Being able to name it, being able to maybe participate with them. I mean, that becomes another level that discussed. But you need to know what your kid's doing. If your kid is using it for education, great. Encourage it. That's a great thing. But if your kid's using it for other things, time limits. Third, last one, going back to the last one, model appropriate behavior. So you use screens appropriately so that your kid knows and recognizes what it is. And then the other piece of it, just sitting with your kid, doing it with them is a great way of doing it. But my favorite example is telling parents, If you're sitting somewhere and you're bored, what do? Almost all the time, phone comes out. With your kids around, learn to be bored. If a parent knows how to be bored and then can sit with their kid and show them, this is how we interact when there's nothing to do. We may sit here and look at the wall. Oh, I can't do that, Dad. This is ridiculous. Like, okay, let's talk. You don't immediately pull out the phone. I am guilty of this. I'm not saying I'm not. I have lots of games that I play on my phone, and I can pull it out, check my resources, and do something, and then put it away. But sometimes it's okay to recognize I'm going to keep it in my pocket. I'm going to show my kids that I don't always need to pull out my phone to be able to interact with something and be able to excited about it. Interact with the world around you. And being able to do that is a very effective way to teach your kid. Being bored is a life skill people spend their lives avoiding. Especially now. You have access to the phone is a computer in your pocket now. It is beyond what we can do before with it, and it's in everybody's pocket. So learning to say, I'm not going to pull it out. I want my kid to know how to interact with humans, and being able to show that is a very effective way to be able to teach them. Screen time. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
Do you have recommendations for like number of or amount of time that it's okay for kids to be on a screen?
Yeah.
Or is it relative?
There's no research I've found that has a time limit of problem or no problem. It's going to be dependent on the kid. If you notice that when my kid's playing for 3 hours and they get off and they're interactive and they are doing everything they're supposed to do, let them play for 3 hours. It's fine. Maybe set that as a arbitrary number, and then you can increase or decrease. But if you notice that if they play for 30 minutes before bed and they turn into a monster, we're gonna cut that to 0, or we're gonna change the timing. Maybe you just play. Maybe the first thing you do is play when you come home from school, and that's the way you kind of unwind. And then we have dinner, and then you do all the stuff, and it kind of works. So it's just depending on what it is. But no, I haven't seen any research that says a specific amount of time for everybody matters. So that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it just kind of depends on the person. It's a good question. Yes, good. I know we went a little over, but hopefully it's helpful. It's online. We can follow up. But if you have any questions, if you have friends that have any questions, please send them in my direction. I'm not saying I know everything, but I know a little bit, and I would love to help, especially with specific situations. I'm not going to provide therapy. Again, that's the clarity of it, but I will refer you if needed. If you feel like, yeah, this situation is a little overboard, I can't handle certain things, like it's gone really far. Therapy is very effective. It's very useful, especially with parenting, where I bring in the parent, I bring in the kid, we all meet together. There's lots of ways to be able to make it work, so I encourage everyone to be open-minded about that. Okay? Great. Cool. As normal, you can join us at our English service. If not, no problem. Yeah. Pan hamara big dai, mekat hamarma, and then kind of an overall.
Relevant.
Yeah.
Screen time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah, adiaga tenem, adiaga chosim, and then hamarma getanem. No problem.